So, my reasons for meditating is because it gives me this constant reminder of what I always want, of what I want out of life, and I know it's important. I know it's important because all these radio, all this television, all this advertisement, it just kind of distorts the fact that it kind of deletes what we want. Kind of makes, like, you look at a billboard at a McDonald's, alright, like a billboard on the side of the road, and first thing when you're hungry, you think about McDonald's, right? Just the same goes for television.
Why? What can it do for me? You know, what will I see out of investing my time into meditation? So, to answer that question, I think we need to recognize what goes on in our little minds right now on a daily basis. You know, we're with our minds constantly, aren't we? But do we really know them? And do we know the pleasure that our minds can sincerely bring us and actually the pain and suffering that our minds can cause us to experience? If our minds go unchecked, we'll never realize how busy and distracted they constantly are. And our modern day society actually encourages us to allow our minds to be stimulated in this busyness. So I live in Los Angeles. It's a very, very busy place, and you drive down the street and there's constantly signs and billboards and restaurants and people walking.
I've gotten to the point where I'm asking myself, what is it all for? What is it all for? I mean, it just brainwashes you. That's why I love to meditate. It constantly reminds me of what I want.
Okay, hello everyone. So my topic this afternoon is dealing with stress. And what I'd like to look at is how we can use Buddhist meditation in particular to help us really recognize what stress is and how we can let go and reduce the amount of stress we have in our lives. Actually, finally opening up the prospect of being able to let go of stress completely. Stress, isn't it? It's increasing pain. It's increasing the tension in your mind. Things are spiraling downwards. Things are getting worse. And all the time, you're blaming your boss or the situation or whatever it is, right? You can apply this analogy to any number of situations. Stress on the engine, stress in our mind, stress in our body, stress in our relationships, because we're saying no, but we're not even recognizing that we're saying no. We're just griping internally, we're just complaining internally. So what we need to do is recognize, and this is what we do when we practice meditation, we get to know our own mind. We get to learn what does anger feel like, what does patience feel like. And this is where it all begins. This is where the practice begins. This is what the Buddhist practice is all about. Geshe Kelsang says again and again and again, the way to deal with the painful states of mind that we call the delusions, such as anger, is to recognize them, reduce them, and abandon them. And basically what I'm talking about here is we need to recognize our mind of anger. In other words, we need to recognize I am angry and this is what it looks like. This is what the mind of anger looks like. And sometimes we don't want to do that. We don't want to recognize that you're angry with, for example, your partner or your kids. It's even painful to recognize that, isn't it? But it's vital, because if you don't, the situation remains unmanageable. The moment you recognize it, there's possibility, because you can only change the external situation so much, but you can completely and utterly transform your mind. So what do we need to do? We need to recognize our own mind of anger. Just that. Initially, just that. Actually accept, I'm angry. Accepting it in such a way so that you can actually look at it and say, here it is, a mind of anger. And take a look at it and see how painful it is. See how actually you don't want to follow it. Listen to its grumblings and realize I don't want to follow its grumblings. I don't want to get trapped in that. Just by looking at it, you create some distance. Some space comes in the mind. Basically some leverage. Whereas before you're just immersed in it, aren't you? Because you're not recognizing it's just taken full possession of you. Once you get a little bit of space, it's not easy to distance yourself from that mind through simple techniques. Breathing meditation, for example. You can just breathe it right out. You can just let it go. Many meditations we teach for learning how to let go of the distorted state of mind, the painful state of mind, but first you have to recognize it. Once we can create some space, we can begin to let go of that situation. Then, of course, we have to bring in an opposing positive view. We have to see, because the situation is not inherently stressful, because my boss is not a stress inducer from his or her own side, I can respond to my boss in a different way. So the key thing here is learning we're learning to see some positive way of responding to what before seemed like an unmanageable situation. So for example, in Geshe Kelsang's most recent book, How to Solve Our Human Problems, then we learn many, many different methods for how to deal with anger, for example, and how to respond to difficult situations, problems, in a positive way. So I don't have time to give you many, but just one simple one, which is you can begin to think, say, of your boss, because that's where we started off. If you have a lovely boss, then please forgive me. Actually, from this perspective, we all have lovely bosses, because even if the boss is perceived initially as a difficulty, as a problem, from the perspective of someone who's training the mind, that's perfect. Because they're not intrinsically a source of anger. Rather, we can regard them as an object for training our mind in patience. We can say, you are my object of patience. You don't say that to them directly. That's a bad idea. But internally you say, you are my object of patience. And so then when you see them walking towards you, whereas before it was like inducing stress, now you're thinking, here they come, my opportunity for training in patience. And you're ready because you've practiced. You've been practicing at home in meditation. You've been preparing your mind to let go of the angry mind that wants to fixate on the problem, to let go of that, and instead to say, I'm going to accept the nature of patience, acceptance. Anger is the nature of rejection. Patience is the nature of acceptance. I'm simply going to accept that situation. Within accepting it, then there are many different possibilities. We all want
to improve our health. We all want this calmness, this clarity of mind, definitely. If our minds are calm and comfortable, then when someone accidentally bumps into us, we don't become frustrated. We know, oh, it's just an accident. If someone forgets to call us, we don't worry about it. So our relationships do improve. The stress subsides. So many illnesses caused from stress naturally begin to heal themselves. And we experience happiness in these challenging modern times. How wonderful. I thought the best thing we could do to answer this question, what will meditation do for me, is actually try to meditate. Okay? So one of the very best meditations, as Geshe says in here, to help remove this busyness of mind is a simple breathing meditation. So in this meditation, what we'll do is we'll just start in the correct meditation posture first, which is the right hand, the palm of the left. Your thumbs are just slightly touching and slightly leaning inwards and at the level of your navel. So you can gently close your eyes. And the most important thing is to have a nice straight back, not stiff, but straight. This helps with the concentration. And if this posture is challenging for you, just Come as close to it as you possibly can. Gently close your eyes and just take a few deep breaths. Let your body relax and soften. Now, to help settle the mind, we learn how to improve our concentration by not watching the busyness of our thoughts and the busyness of our mind, but focusing on one thing. We focus only on the sensation or the feeling of our breath as it enters our body and as it leaves our body. So you focus on the sensation of your breath as it enters your nostrils and as it leaves. When a thought arises, don't follow it, just breathe this away. If you become distracted, breathe this away.